Hi readers, Lee here. Welcome back to my channel. And I took the past week off to get some things done around the house. Primarily getting my back porch cleaned off so I could eat out there again, and also shelve some of my books. But it's now official. I now have more books than I have containers or carts and shelves in which to place them. I'm gonna have to start double stacking upstairs, I think. I don't really want to do that, but here we are. And anyway, I also took a day and went up for supper to Durham, North Carolina, and since I didn't want to be fighting 5 o'clock traffic, I went early and stopped at the Barnes & Noble. Then I went over to where the restaurant was, and I went to another bookshop, and of course I bought books at both places. So let me tell you about my weekend books. I want to start off at the Barnes & Noble, where I purchased Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder. This is the book that I'm currently reading. I just started it this morning. I'm recording it on a Sunday, and I am enjoying it so far. I'm having a much better time with it than I did the last horror book I tried to read. Sister Maiden Monster, this is a visceral story set in the aftermath of our planet's disastrous transformation, about what it takes to survive an apocalypse and what we become after. As a virus tears across the globe, dark forces pull a group of women together. Erin, once quiet and closeted, acquires an appetite for a woman and her brain. Why does forbidden fruit taste so good? Savannah, a professional BDSM switch, discovers a new turn-on, committing brutal murders for her eldritch masters. Mareva, plagued with chronic tumors, is too horrified to acknowledge her divine role in the coming apocalypse. And as her growths multiply, so too does her desperation. I picked this to read now because it's still Pride Month, and I wanted to add another Pride book that was different, not like a rom-com. This is it. It starts out in Erin's perspective, and I'm, like I said, really enjoying it so far. Less than 50 pages in, but so far, I'm recommending this. Love it. Next up, later in the week, I think I'm going to do a review of Scream for Me by Karen Rose. This book was published in 2008, and I've got some comments on it, some negative, but some just me centered, and it does feel a little dated. It feels like more 80s 90s than 2008, but I'll tell you about that in the review, but that's not why we're here. Even though I had some negative thoughts and feelings about Scream for Me, it did not stop me from buying Say You're Sorry by Karen Rose at the Barnes & Noble in Durham. This was published in 2019, so I'm interested to see the difference between these two, 10, 11 years apart. So hopefully this will be a little up to date. This one is about a serial killer. I love me a good serial killer book. There's a serial killer on the loose, preying on vulnerable women. The only identifiable mark the killer leaves are letters, sometimes one, sometimes two, all carved into the torsos of his victims. Together they spell Sydney. When he grabs Daisy Dawson, he believes he's found his next victim, but despite her small stature, she fights back with an expertise that quickly frees her. Before fleeing the scene, Daisy also manages to grab what proves to be the crucial evidence, a necklace from around the killer's neck. The necklace is more than a trivial item. It's a link to a cold case that Special Agent Gideon Reynolds has been tracking for 17 years. With Daisy's help, Gideon finally has the opportunity to get closer to the truth than ever before. But they may not get the chance, as the serial killer has a new target, Gideon and Daisy. So, I won't read this month because I've tried to make a habit of not reading the same author more than once in a month. I've noticed that when I do that, or when I read the same genre, it starts to get stale for me, and I get impatient and like it less. But this will be one I read soon. Just a thought, when I was organizing my books upstairs, this is one of the ones I've had in my upstairs library for I don't know how long. And I took the opportunity to read it. Okay. Next up is a fantasy book I had never heard of, and I hope that this one hits the mark for me. It was a national bestseller. It got a good blurb from George R.R. Martin, and somebody says it talks about the absorbing colorful characters, and I hope that it is for me. And that is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I've never heard about him. George R.R. Martin calls it fresh, original, and engrossing, gorgeously realized. So when I'm in the mood for fantasy, I'm going to pick this one up. This was his first novel, and the Times of London says that it exports the suspense and wit of a cleverly constructed crime caper into an exotic realm of fantasy, and the result is engagingly entertaining. An orphan's life is harsh, and often short, in the mysterious island city of Comore. But young Locke Lamora dodges death and slavery, becoming a thief under the tutelage of a gifted con artist. As leader of the band of light-fingered brothers known as the Gentlemen Bastards, Locke is soon infamous, fooling even the underworld's most feared ruler. But in the shadows lurks someone still more ambitious and deadly. Faced with a bloody coup that threatens to destroy everyone and everything that holds meaning in his mercenary life, Locke vows to beat the enemy at his own brutal game, or die trying. So, this looks good. I've not read any reviews of it. I'm going to try not to. But I do look forward, and I do love a good fantasy. The next book I bought is sci-fi, and I typically don't read sci-fi. I did give it a shot with Dune earlier this year, and Dune did not work for me. But as I was walking towards the checkout, one of the salespeople at Barnes & Noble stopped me and commented on my good stack of books, and also said that this book, The Forever War by Joe Halderman, was one of her father's favorite books. This was originally published. This is not, I think, the author's preferred version, but whatever. This was originally published in 1974, and this version, I don't know when it is. This is 2009, the forward to this. 2008 is when the John Scalzi, I don't know who he is either. Oh, okay, this is the definitive version of The Forever War. There are two other versions. I can't wait to read. This is going up to read soon. I might read this in June. Anywho, the Earth's leaders have drawn a line in the interstellar sand, despite the fact that the fierce alien enemy they would oppose is inscrutable, unconquerable, and very far away. A reluctant conscript drafted into an elite military unit, Private William Mandela has been propelled through space and time to fight in the distant 1,000-year conflict, to perform his duties and do whatever it takes to survive the ordeal and return home. But home may be even more terrifying than battle, because, thanks to the time dilation caused by space travel, Mandela is aging months, while the Earth he left behind is aging centuries. Stephen King, author of The Shining, The Dead Zone, and The Stand, said, if there was a Fort Knox for science fiction writers, we'd have to lock Joe Halderman up. Some other guy who I do not know, but is a Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, Junot Diaz, I don't know how to pronounce that, says it's perhaps the most important war novel written since Vietnam. Halderman, a veteran, is a flat-out visionary, simply extraordinary. So let's see if he's a visionary. This will go up into my to-read pile. Is this science fiction or fantasy? I think this next one is fantasy. This was also a Pride Month selection, and it looks so intriguing to me. This is a Nebula Award winner, Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. I'm going to try to squeeze this in Pride Month as well. It's really short. It's really a novella. It's only got 133 pages. Helen Brandt knows her end is coming, and she'll do anything to change it. A magical detective dives into the affairs of Chicago's divine monsters to secure a future with the love of her life. This seems like, with monsters, it'll go with this one. This sapphic period piece will dazzle anyone looking for mystery, intrigue, romance, magic, or all of the above. An exiled augur who sold her soul to save her brother's life is offered one last job before serving an eternity in hell. When she turns it down, her client sweetens the pot by offering up the one payment she can't resist, the chance to have a future where she grows old with the woman she loves. To succeed, she is given 3 days to track down the White City vampire, Chicago's most notorious serial killer. If she fails, only hell and heartbreak await. So, the Washington Post says, noir and fantasy often seem to go together, but these two elements seldom uplift each other quite as well as they do in Even Though I Knew the End. Can't wait to, okay, I've got to pause for a second. I'm not going to get up because I don't know where it is, but the next book I'm going to talk about is Buy One, Get One 50. I did purchase another Buy One, Get One 50 book, but it was a mistake. I tossed it on the floor over there because I thought that it was just going to be a romantic comedy, and I knew it was probably loosely based on Taylor Swift, but then I did start reading the reviews, and I looked at the intro, and it's for all the Swifties and to Miss Swift, something, something evermore, and that's when I realized it was Taylor Swift fanfic. And look, I'm a fan of Taylor Swift. I love her music. I enjoyed watching the movie version of the Eras Tour, but I don't want to read fanfic about her. No, it's just not for me. I want to read a rom-com, not someone speculating about Taylor Swift's love life. Anyway, the one I'm keeping so far is Take Two, Birdie Maxwell, by Allison Winn Scotch. In this, Hollywood's biggest rom-com star tries to recover from her damaged reputation by staging her own rom-com and following a lead on a lost love. Birdie Robinson thought she'd gotten everything she wanted out of life: fame, adoration, and an A-list Hollywood career. But after an on-set feud goes viral, she leaves LA for the one place where no one would think to find her hometown. She's startled to stumble across a love letter from a former boyfriend asking for a second chance. There's just one issue. The letter was unsigned, and she's not sure which ex sent it. Still, a reunion with an ex-boyfriend could turn the wave of public opinion back in her favor. Life imitating art. What could go wrong? Elliot O'Brien, star reporter, knows that life isn't an actual rom-com. Case in point, he spent 2 decades repressing his long-simmering feelings for his twin sister's best friend, Birdie. But with his journalism career cratering, and Birdie back in their hometown at the same time he realizes that chronicling her search for her long-ago ex may be his opportunity to right some wrongs. As they hit the road in an ancient RV, Birdie and Elliot retrace her romantic history for clues to who wrote the letter and come face to face with their own romantic missteps, all while grappling with whether happy endings are found only on the big screen or whether their own happily ever after could be closer than they both imagined. I've got 3 more books, and I was checking to make sure I don't run out of battery, because sometimes this one gets a little finicky. So that's all the Barnes & Noble books, and I've got to order these. Anyway, I'm going to talk about them. So then I went over to the other side of Durham, closer to the restaurant, and I realized there was a bookstore near the restaurant too, so naturally, here I go. And there I picked up Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I've not heard about this, but I opened this up, and I saw on chapter 2, Sunday, July 21st, 2024. So I was like, yeah, I'm picking that up. This was published in 1993. LeVar Burton does the foreword, copyright 2023. Interesting. So, when global climate change and economic crises lead to social chaos in the early 2020s, God, was she a prophet? California becomes full of dangers, from pervasive water shortage to masses of vagabonds who will do anything to live to see another day. 15-year-old Lauren Olamina lives inside a gated community with her preacher father, family, and neighbors, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy. In a society where any vulnerability is a real risk, she suffers from hyperempathy, a debilitating sensitivity to others' emotions. Precocious and clear-eyed, Lauren must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from the imminent disasters her small community stubbornly ignores. But what begins as a fight for survival soon leads to something much more: the birth of a new faith and a startling vision of human destiny. Sounds good. All these books sound so good. I made some good choices this time. I think so. It's already starting to feel better than last week's books and some of the books I read earlier this month. Next up is Pulitzer Prize finalist Percival Everett with The Trees, a novel. I read Erasure earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it, even though some of it went over my head. This was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2022. Oh, and they put a bookmark in here from Letters Bookshop. I didn't realize that. When a pair of detectives from the Mississippi... God dang, man. When a pair of detectives from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation arrive in Money, Mississippi, to investigate a series of brutal murders, they find at each crime scene an unexpected second dead body, that of a man who resembles Emmett Till. After meeting resistance from the local sheriff, his deputy, the coroner, and a string of racist white townsfolk, the MBI detectives suspect these are killings of retribution. Then they discover eerily similar murders taking place in rapid succession all over the country. The past, it seems, refuses to be buried. The uprising has begun. In this provocative page-turner that takes direct aim at racism and police violence, Percival Everett offers a devastating critique of white supremacy and confronts the painful legacy of lynching in the United States. I really look forward to reading this. Oh, and there are very short chapters. Love, like a page or two. Love that. Okay. Finally, I believe this is a YA book. It is a signed copy. I don't know if this person's from North Carolina or not. Ah, they are. This is also a Pride Month selection. They currently live in North Carolina. This is Have You Seen This Girl by Nita Tyndall. Another girl has gone missing in Cardinal Creek. Sid knows her dad didn't do it. This time, he's currently serving a life sentence for 5 girls he murdered 10 years ago. Girls whose bodies he dumped into the lake. The same lake where June Hargrove was just found. And while Sid's dad couldn't have done it, suspicion is now directed at Sid. The only person who doesn't suspect them is the new girl, Mavis, as long as Sid doesn't let her find out about their past. But Sid has another secret. They're being haunted by the ghost of the 5 girls their father killed, except now there are 6, and unlike the others, June isn't content to just whisper in Sid's ear. She wants them to find out who's killing again, especially once another girl goes missing. If Sid wants any chance of solving the current disappearances, they're going to have to face what their father did, or risk being haunted forever. This, copyright 2024 by Nita Tyndall. I look forward to reading this too. My sister just read a book called Ask for Andrea that also contained like hauntings, only this time the serial killer himself was being haunted. And they don't have a copy locally. I looked for it, but this seems similar to that, and I'm looking forward to it. And that is all the books I've got. I have no idea where I'm going to put them because I've got books everywhere. One of my other goals for this week was try to clean out this long living room, which I won't show you, and I was not successful in that. I'm just going to have to work at it bit by bit. Anywho, I'd love to hear what you're reading. Did you get any new books this week? Do you have any opinions on any of these books that I just bought? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. That's it for me. Happy reading!